Hey, have you ever stopped to think about what's really going on when you click a button online? I mean, really think about it. Today, we're going to build a complete map of the digital world. We'll connect the dots from a tiny little circuit all the way up to the massive global networks we're using every single second. Yeah, just think about it for a sec. You click a link, and boom, this whole world of information just appears on your screen, almost instantly. But how? What are the invisible gears turning behind the scenes to make that all happen? Well, that's exactly the puzzle we're going to piece together today. And to help us make sense of all this complexity, we're going to use this really cool idea I call the digital ladder. We're going to start at the very bottom, the first rung, and climb our way up step by step. And as we do, you'll see how every piece of technology is actually built on top of the one right below it. It all connects. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the bare metal, the machine itself. Then we'll get it connected to the internet. After that, we'll see how websites are actually built and then explore the heavy-duty tools that power modern tech. We'll even peek into the future with AI, and finally, we'll tie it all together to see what kind of career paths this opens up. Sound good? Let's get started. All right, here we go. First step onto the ladder. Every single thing we do online, whether it's sending a quick email or getting lost in a game for hours, it all starts with a physical machine. So that's our foundation. Let's dig in. So at its most basic level, any computer is really split into two big parts. On one hand, you've got the hardware. That's the physical stuff you can actually touch, the motherboard, the processor, the memory. And on the other hand, you have the software. Those are all the invisible instructions and code that tell the hardware what to do. It's kind of like one is the body, and the other is the mind that makes it all work. And right at the heart of all that hardware, the single most important piece is the CPU, the central processing unit. You really can think of it as the brain of the whole operation. It's the engine that's executing every single command, from opening a file to, rendering this very explainer on your screen right now. Okay, so we've got our machine, we have a body and a brain. But right now, it's basically sitting in a room all by itself. So for the next rung on our ladder, we're going to connect it to billions of other machines all over the planet. This is where the internet really comes alive. So when you type in a website and hit enter, this incredible chain reaction kicks off in the background. First, your computer uses something called the DNS, or domain name system, which is basically the internet's giant phone book to find the server's unique address. Then it shoots off a little message, an HTTP request, to that server saying, hey, can I have the website? And if all goes well, the server sends a response right back with all the data. And the craziest part? All of this happens in like the blink of an eye.
But you know that little S you sometimes see at the end of HTTP in your address bar? Ever wonder what that's about? Well, that one little letter is a huge deal. Seriously. It's the difference between sending your information out on a postcard that anyone can read versus sealing it up in a secure, armored envelope. That S stands for secure, and it means your connection is encrypted and safe.
All right, so we've made it to the website, the request worked, but what is this thing we're looking at? How is it actually built? Let's climb up to the next rung and take a look under the hood to see how these digital experiences are put together. So pretty much every website or app you use has two different sides to it. You've got the front end, which is often called the client side. That's everything you see and interact with in your browser, the colors, the layout, the buttons you click. Think of it like the showroom or the dining room of a restaurant. But then there's the back end. That's the server side, the hidden engine room. That's where all the serious work happens, storing data, checking your password, all the heavy lifting, before the finished product is sent out to your screen. Okay, building a single website is one thing. But what about running a massive service like a Netflix or a Spotify for millions of people at once? Yeah, when applications get that big and complex, you need a way more powerful set of tools. So this next rung on our ladder is all about how you build and manage software at an enormous scale. And two really key pieces of tech here are virtual machines, or VMs, and containers. Now, they both let you run your code in its own little bubble, but they do it in different ways. A VM is like having an entire separate computer, hardware and all, running inside your main computer. It's powerful, but kind of heavy. A container, on the other hand, is way more lightweight.
It's more like a perfectly packed box that just has the app and only what it needs to run. This makes it super fast and easy to move around. Now, this leads to a classic problem in the tech world. You've got the development team, the devs, who build the software, and then you have the operations team, the ops, who have to actually run it. And historically, these two groups didn't always get along or work together well. And that's where DevOps comes in. It's not just a tool, it's a whole philosophy, a new culture. The whole point is to use automation to bring those dev and ops teams together, break down the walls between them so they can ship better software way, way faster.
We've been climbing pretty high on this ladder, and now we're reaching the very top. We're looking out at the absolute cutting edge of technology. And that, of course, is the world of artificial intelligence, where we're actually teaching machines to learn, to reason, and even to create.
Now, you hear these terms thrown around all the time, right? AI, ML, DL. They can get a little confusing, but they're actually pretty distinct. Think of it like nesting dolls. AI, or artificial intelligence, is the big, broad field, the whole idea of making machines smart. Inside that, you have machine learning, or ML. That's a specific approach where we teach systems by feeding them tons of data instead of hard coding the rules. And then a popular technique inside that is deep learning, or DL, which uses these complex neural networks, kind of inspired by the human brain, to find super complex patterns in just massive amounts of information. Which, of course, brings us to tools like ChatGPT, which honestly feel like pure magic to a lot of us. So let's ask the question, when you type something into that box, what is actually happening under the hood? How can a computer generate text that sounds so human? Well, the surprisingly simple answer is probability. These things are called large language models, or LLMs, and they've basically been fed a library of text that's bigger than you can possibly imagine, pretty much the entire internet. So when you give it a prompt, it doesn't understand it like a person does. Instead, it just does a massive calculation to predict what the most statistically likely next word should be. And then the next word after that, and the one after that, stringing them all together to create a sentence that makes sense. So we did it. We climbed the whole ladder, all the way from a single processor chip to these globe-spanning AI models. Now for our last step, let's bring it all back down to Earth and see how this entire map can actually help you find your own spot in this incredible digital world.
So how does all this stuff translate into actual jobs? Well, if you look at this chart, you can see that each rung we climbed on our ladder pretty much corresponds to a real career path. Were you fascinated by building the front end and back end of websites? You might be a developer. Did the idea of managing all that complexity with containers and automation get you excited? Well, you might be perfect for operations or DevOps. And if you found yourself drawn to that final frontier, the AI stuff, then you could be a future AI engineer. See, there's a place for everyone on this ladder.
So there you have it. We've built a pretty comprehensive map of the entire digital world, from the deepest foundations to the highest frontier. Now that you have the map, the only question left is, where are you going to explore first?